Okay, so welcome to Regaining the Confidence to Be You, Top Tips and More with Rob Stewart and myself, Maria Newman. And thank you for joining us today. Our mission during this 30 minutes is to give you some simple tips that will help you to regain your confidence, taking you from constantly doubting yourself to being the confident person that you want to be. Some of you may have already downloaded our free guide. However, if you haven't, then we will be posting a link in the comment box. But who are we? So my name is Maria Newman, and I help burnt out mums to regain their confidence, reconnect with who they are, and silence their inner critic so that they can reignite their mojo for life. And I do this through coaching, mentoring and training. And if you're not already connected with me, then please come and connect with me on LinkedIn as Maria Newman or Instagram as Mummy on a Break. Plus I have a free private Facebook group for mums, the Busy Working Mums Club. And if you want to know more about me and my story, then why not take a look at my website, and we will be posting our contact details in the chat box.
And my name is Rob Stewart. I own and run Shepherd Bear Coaching, my coaching company, and I've had some different specialities in my coaching over a period of about 5 or 6 years. I've coached NHS patients, I've exclusively coached men and women, and now I'm focusing on coaching the person behind the business. So helping individuals thrive so their businesses do too. And I facilitate communication between managerial teams and business owners. So if you want to get hold of me, Maria has kindly put my details in the chat too. I've got a spanking new website, which I'm very proud of. So please do check that out. So today we're going to be covering a few different things. We're going to be looking at what confidence is and why you feel you may have lost it. We'll be expanding on our confidence guide. So that's the PDF that we put out there, that we recently published, and you can download that at the end of this webinar if you haven't done so already. And we'll also be giving you some practical tips to get you started so you can regain your confidence. So that's delving into some of that PDF in a bit more detail. Plus at the end of this live, we'll have some exciting news. So do stay tuned until the end.
So let's begin. What is confidence? So a great definition of confidence is a belief in oneself, the conviction that one has the ability to meet life's challenges and to succeed, and the willingness to act accordingly. And to simplify it, basically, it's about feeling sure of yourself and your ability. So when we lack confidence, it's because of the uncertainty in ourselves, uncertainty in our abilities, uncertainty in our environment. That's why we can feel confident in some situations and lack confidence in others. When we're in a familiar situation with familiar people and we have the skills to deal with that, then we're more likely to feel confident. However, if we're in a situation which is loaded with uncertainty, people we don't know, and we don't feel like we know what we're doing, we tend to lack confidence. Now, I remember all too well when I first became a mum, how that felt. Being a mum is filled with uncertainty, as some of you can relate to. Everything is new, it's a steep learning curve, and it's not like your baby can tell you what they want or need. So lacking confidence actually is not unusual. But over time, we learn and we become more confident in what we're doing. And the thing I want to say to you today is we are actually born with confidence. Confidence to be seen, confidence to be heard, confidence to have a go. You may think, Maria, that's crazy. Confidence, I wasn't born with confidence. Let me give you a really, really simple example. As babies, we wouldn't think twice about using our voices to tell grown-ups what we needed or thought, even if we couldn't speak. The only way to learn and to grow is to have a go, to learn through trial and error. A baby doesn't give up on learning to walk just because they failed on their first attempt. However, our experience through life and the influence of others either builds us up or knocks us down. Confidence is in you. We want to help you to reconnect with that confidence. So there will have already been times during your life where you have felt confident. I would like you all to take a moment now to think of a situation where you felt confident. I want you to think about, why did you feel confident? How did you behave? How did you speak? What did you think? And obviously, we'd love you to share. Either, again, as we said, share to the group or share privately to myself and Rob. And whilst you're thinking and whilst you're typing, I'm going to ask Rob the same questions, just to show, you know, myself and Rob, we are real human beings. We are confident as much as there are times when we lack confidence. So Rob, when was the last time you didn't feel confident?
Yeah, so I've thought about that, and yesterday. So I'm currently coaching a senior management team and facilitating meetings for a company. I've been doing it for a number of months now, and I know them quite well. Things are going very well, but 2.5 hours prior to that meeting, I'm sat at my desk worrying about my ability to help them achieve their goals, and just having doubts about everything I'm doing. So that was the last time that I didn't feel confident.
And why was it? What in particular? How were you feeling?
I think my feelings are very attached to my thoughts. So I was thinking a lot about it, but I was asking myself questions or raising issues I didn't necessarily have an answer to. So I was just sat with my thoughts. So I was feeling, very, very literally very still, but also feeling like I was going around in circles a little bit with my thoughts.
And what were those thoughts? What were you saying to yourself?
Well, to sum it up, you can't do this. There you go. You can't do, forgetting what I'd already done and all the success I've had already. You can't do this, and why are you going there? You're not up to the task.
And we all have that. We all have moments of, let's call it imposter syndrome, where we think we can't do something, and we dwell on the we can't rather than focusing on what we can do. So now let's flip it around, and I want you guys to do the same thing. I'm going to ask Rob now, as we've talked about lack of confidence, now let's focus on when we do feel confident. So Rob, whilst our attendees here are thinking about a time where they felt confident, when is the time when you felt confident?
Yeah, so I think it's an unlikely place, but it's in front of an audience. And now, I used to be a teacher, and I used to be a geography teacher. And my first lessons that I delivered when I was training were just catastrophically bad, not awful. To the point where children were not only off task but walking around the room, and it was bad. Bad behaviour happening, and I learned to be confident in a place which first I found very fearful. Maria, I've lost myself. I'm telling my own story. Can you repeat your question, please?
Yes, of course. Tell me a time where you did feel confident.
Yeah, so it was in that environment I felt confident, and it's when I started to focus on individuals, on listening to people. That's when I started to feel confident, when I was listening to other people, because then I got lost in that process. I was serving other people. I was using a skill I'm good at, apart from when I was trying to remember the question you asked me. So that's when I started to feel confident.
And what were the thoughts then that were going through your head? What were you telling yourself?
I wasn't necessarily telling myself something, but the thoughts that were going through my head were to do with what I was listening to or who I was listening to. So I was in a state of flow. And because I was focusing on something else other than myself, so what I was actually doing, it took that kind of like the focus on the lack of the confidence that I had at the time. That just wasn't, the spotlight wasn't on that. It was on something else. And so I just let the moment carry me away with it. So I kind of got off the spot, if you like, off that sticking point of I'm not confident here. When I focused on somebody else and started listening to them, that's how I found a way to be confident.
And through Rob's real example, again, he's demonstrating how we feel, whether we're feeling confident or we have a lack of confidence. It's all about where we focus our attention. If we focus our attention on what we can't do and how things aren't right, then we'll end up going down that path, and the feeling of lacking in confidence will grow. Whereas if we focus our attention on what we can do and what we are good at, our confidence will grow. So I want to tell you about a client I was working with recently, and she was talking to me about feeling like she'd lost her confidence and was lacking confidence, which had been triggered after she had her daughter. She described how big life changes had knocked her confidence, and imposter syndrome had started to become more apparent. And as a result, she was questioning herself, just as we've just been saying, her decisions and how she felt awkward. Backing down was easier than using her voice to be heard. The sad thing was, she now no longer felt like the person that she used to be. She had low self-esteem, her direction was uncertain, and as she feels like she's trying to be everything to everyone, and she can't even remember at what point she felt like she changed. But things have to change, and she wants to regain the confidence that she once had, because she knows it's in there. And just looking at some of your comments about where you felt like you've had a lack in confidence, it is, again, focusing on just look at your words that you've typed, focusing on what you can't do, and you can't do it. And we want to help you to redirect your attention so that you're standing in what you can do. And thank you for being so honest with us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just reading those comments there. A lovely last comment there. I lost my belief in myself. Sarah says, I lost belief in myself. I'm now turning a new leaf. Great to hear. Great to hear. So I used to be a personal trainer. I've had a few jobs in my life. And confidence is just like a muscle, and it needs to be constantly exercised, because if it's not, then over time it will start to weaken and you'll start to feel less confident. So you don't just look at a muscle and think, right, I'm going to exercise that by looking at it. That's a bit like waiting for confidence to arrive. You go into action and, you lift something or, do something to train a muscle. And the result is that the muscle grows, not because you're looking at the muscle, but because you're focusing on a process and doing something. So going back to the story I told, that's a bit like that. Other things that might weaken your confidence muscle could be being constantly criticized by yourself or other people, playing small because of the fear of being judged or compared, so not reaching for the stars, so to speak. Experiencing a life-changing event like becoming a parent, as Maria mentioned before, losing your job, maybe not getting a job, accepting a job that you feel is too much for you, losing a loved one. Another reason, feeling like you're constantly going to make a mistake, so being worried about making mistakes. Feeling physically and mentally tired because you're not looking after your well-being. That's become a major topic since COVID hit us. Listening to that inner critic, I call it like a radio station of propaganda that tells you things which aren't true about yourself, and dwelling on past mistakes rather than looking forward. So regaining your confidence will have a dramatic effect on your life and the way that you live it. You can feel more comfortable with just being you and feeling calmer in the same moment, being less bothered by what people think, being able to manage stressful situations better, being able to influence others or a situation, and also focusing on the positives rather than dwelling on the negatives. And as a result, just feeling happier. So I'd like to tell you a story about a client named Emma, who had just started her journey to becoming more confident. Now, her motivation for working on her confidence muscle was that she wanted to be more relaxed in her life, as well as happy and content. Now, at the moment, she's worrying a lot about what she's doing and how others perceive her, which is a guessing game. And this is what is putting a dent in her confidence. She's learned to take smaller steps more consistently, which means that her life is going in the direction that she wants. And whenever she starts to doubt herself, she reminds herself of how far she's come, which motivates her to keep going. So looking at the past successes which have got her to where she is now. So she is nurturing her inner cheerleader, the opposing force to that inner critic, and she's no longer looking to others for validation. And she's regularly exercising her confidence muscle without just looking at it. She's actually going into action. So, just to mention, we've got this free gift for you. It's a PDF, and it gives you top 5 tips to reattach to your confidence. By the way, for more detail, as we've mentioned at the beginning of the live, we'll post a link to this guide in the chat box. Either Maria will do it now, but we'll do it later. So I'm going to take you through a few of the highlights of what's covered in the PDF. So, number 1, the relationship between action and motivation. I think motivation, because sometimes we can think, right, I will do this when I have motivation. Now, I'll wait for motivation to arrive, and then I'll go into action. Unfortunately, that doesn't really work. It's the other way around. We go into action, and that develops motivation. So think of motivation like a bucket with a hole in it. And the way to fill that up is by going into action. So when you go into action, the water level in the bucket fills up, but it's slowly seeping out. So if we go into action one time, it's going to generate a little bit of motivation, but the motivation will seep out. So go into action again and again and again raises the levels of motivation. The more we act, the more motivation we have on tap. Now, it's that first step then that might be the most difficult, because there is no motivation in the bucket to speak of. It's a bit like, I always say, it's a bit like if I were at school and I fancied a girl in a different school and she had no knowledge that I existed and I just fancied her. That is me waiting, that's like me waiting for motivation to arrive in my life. I'm waiting for this girl to arrive in my life. So I've actually got to go into action and make myself known to that person and say hi. And then there is a possibility that she may like me back. So I have to court that person. So I have to court motivation by going into action first. On the PDF, we have the second point, which is the smallest of nuclei. Okay, so sometimes talking about going to the gym and muscles, that kind of stuff, we might think, I'm going to go to the gym every day this week. And it's too big of a bite in life to take. And when we can't do that, we can even deem 4 times a week a failure because we've chosen to go 5 times. So what's a small step that you can take to build your confidence up? And if it's small, then it's arguably sustainable, reliable, you can do it again and again. And around that nucleus, other things will happen. Now, we don't know exactly what those are, but because you're doing something that's sustainable, you can do it repeatedly. It gives a chance for life to gravitate around it. Number 3, using acknowledgement. So we were talking earlier about reminding ourselves of past successes rather than past failures. There's lots of reasons why you are where you are today in terms of success. Imagine a boxer walking to a ring. They're going to meet a challenging fighter. So they're the current champion. Now, they might be full of doubt because this challenger is, all singing, all dancing, but it will help that boxer to remind themselves of all the fights that they have won leading up to this point. And that is why boxers will often enter the ring carrying the belts that they've already won. So acknowledgement. Number 4, the filter of your values. Values are what is important to you. I have 5 values: leadership, campaign, trust, love, and fun. And those need to be in my life on a daily basis for me to be happy. It also helps me sift through the choices and decisions I have to make to see if they align with me. So how does listening to your inner critic marry up to your values? And this can help you assess if something's helpful or not. So doing things that help you live your values and bring them to existence will boost your own confidence. And then lastly, we have ready, fire, aim, or otherwise known as fake it until you make it. So we can often wait, or I find I can wait until I've got the perfect, or what I deem to be the perfect approach to something, and then I will go into action. But I can be stationary, literally, for some time whilst I'm trying to figure out the perfect way forward. However, perfection, what is it? Does it exist? So by taking action before we know about perfection, we may realize that it's not leading us exactly where we want to go. Maybe some of our values are being compromised. So we then have the luxury of making another decision. And we then start to move off that spot by going to action first. So ready, fire, aim, or fake it until you make it can help us get off the mark. And asking yourself, what's the worst that can happen if I go into action right now without having a perfect decision? That can help. Maria, over to you.
Thank you, Rob. And I'd just like to add to that, rather than focusing on what's the worst that can happen, which could take us down that negative spin.
Good point.
Why not ask yourself, what is the best that can happen? And reframe your focus to be positive rather than starting on the back foot and going, oh, what's the worst that could happen? So Rob's taken you through a number of things that you can try to get you going, because with your confidence, like we said, we're likening it to a muscle. We want you to exercise it. We want you to focus your attention in a way that helps you rather than adding fuel to you thinking you lack confidence. Now, what I'd like to do is to give you some practical tips that will help you to switch on your confidence in those moments where you might feel like you're on shaky ground. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is anchoring. And you may have heard of anchoring before. And this is about helping you to trigger the feeling of confidence from something or some things that have already happened. So I want you to remember, like we said a minute ago, remember a time where you felt super confident. And I want you to really take on board how you felt in those moments. How did you act? How did you speak? And I want you to fully visualize those moments. So take one at a time and step into it and remember it and feel it as if it's happening again. And then we want to anchor that experience so that we can easily trigger those feelings when we need to feel confident. And anchoring is a way of attaching it to doing something so that when you do that thing, it triggers those feelings. So as an example, I tend to press my thumb and my middle finger together, either when I'm visualizing or if I'm actually having a moment where I feel confident, because I'm present, I'm in that moment. Other people who I know will press their earlobe. So this might sound a bit woo-woo or a bit weird, but over time, by having those anchor points, it'll feel less like what Rob said with the fake it until you make it, and will feel more real. So decide what anchor point feels natural to you. I know someone who, whenever they'd go into a meeting, a high-powered meeting, they would actually take their watch off. And the process of taking their watch off triggered those feelings of, right, I mean business now, I'm going to be confident. So just to reiterate, think of a time when you were confident, step into that moment, really visualize that moment, and then anchor it by attaching it to something, whether it's pressing your fingers together, pressing your earlobe, an act of something, whatever it is, anchor those feelings. And then when you need to feel confident, and through practice, you just do that again. And over time, by touching that anchor point, you will find that those feelings come up. Number 2, strike your superhero pose. Now, when we feel like we're lacking in confidence, we naturally sort of do this. You know, we get as small as we can. We probably don't speak very loudly. We might tend to mumble. Whereas if you automatically strike your superhero pose, you are standing tall, you are opening your chest, you are able to present yourself in a way that says, I am confident. And actually adds a bit of emphasis to what Rob said about fake it until you make it. And then my third one to you is affirmations. Now, I'm going to put a warning here. Affirmations do not work if you do not believe in them. So you might as well just be saying a string of words that have no connection to each other if you don't believe in them. But affirmations will work if you truly believe in the words you say. And it is as simple as writing yourself a sentence or a couple of sentences that you believe in. And then, and this may sound a bit yee-haw and overly positive, but literally standing in front of the mirror, looking at yourself square in the eye, so you know you are talking to yourself, and reciting those affirmations or that affirmation with true belief in not just your voice, but in your facial expression. And one that I want to give to you is, I feel confident right now. And even if I'm in a situation that is new, I know I can handle it.
Wow, thank you, Maria. I think I love those 3 really simple steps to switch on that confidence muscle. The time has flown by. We hope you found this webinar useful and beneficial when trying to make inroads in your confidence. It's the earliest part of the journey that is possibly the most challenging. So a bit like the relationship between action and motivation. First going into action, the very first time you go into action around a particular topic, it's the hardest. And this is why we're doing this, why we created the PDF, why we're holding the webinar, and the course that follows, is that we want to, be the stabilizers for you so you can experiment and ask questions and find solutions from within, so that, like a couple of parents who are like, right, I think we're ready for the old stabilizers to come off, but we've seen you through that most challenging time. That's one of the reasons that we want to do this, because we firmly believe you can, and we want to be there at the most challenging time for you. So, and look forward to that journey beyond the stabilizers as well. That's when you get to actually lean into a corner rather than go around absolutely upright on your bicycle. So enjoy the freedom that creates. So look forward to that, and thank you very much for joining.
That's all we have. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you all very soon.